Look, again, sex sells. Stick. Oh, actually, my God, she doesn't really... They've not done her justice really there, have they? Let's be honest. Print magazines, check them out. Yes, this is the kind of stuff we used to have to read back in the day. Anyway, on my blog, I actually talked a little bit about print versus digital, kind of where it's going. But me being quite old, I say old, I'm middle-aged, I guess. This is my favorite time when I was gaming. This is like, for me, this is the golden age. For some of you, it'll be the PlayStation era. Some of you might even be the Xbox One, I don't know. But for me, this kind of captures the 2 years, because this magazine series was only out for 2 years. It's my favorite. There's only one other person that I know who probably loves this just as much as me, and that's Damo, also known as Damien from Nintendo Life. He's probably got all these in complete pristine condition. For me, I haven't, maybe not quite so much, because they've seen some wear and tear over the years, and he actually runs something called the Me Machines Archive. So you can still check these out digitally, kind of feeding back into my whole digital versus print. But nonetheless, I'm just going to look through some of these and, you know, reminisce over some good times. The first thing to look at here is kind of like the prices of some of the systems. These adverts were always in the beginning of the magazines and almost toward the end. You can see a Japanese Mega Drive there as it kind of slides out of view of the video. But let's just take a look at some of these prices. I'm going to just crash in here with the camera. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to try and pull focus, but it'd be interesting to see some of the game prices and how maybe things have changed or maybe not have changed so much. So looking at this, I can see we've got Rambo 3 there at the bottom, about here, for £24.99. And remember, these prices here are actually quite reasonable. And let's check the year as well, because obviously that'll play a big factor in when it was. So it's 9th of June. I'm suspecting this is probably 90, I don't know if it's 91 or 92. But these prices are actually quite reasonable, because I remember Mega Drive games being about £34.99. So they would obviously cut out the middleman here. And I remember actually NRG were, who these guys are, Special Reserve, if I just go zoom up there. These guys, NRG, they were actually a company spawned off of, I think it was Firebird. And if you kind of remember the name, you must be quite old, because Firebird was a software company who made Spectrum games back in the day. I only remember the Spectrum because that was one of the computers I had going way back. And the guy that used to make those games, it was him and his son, and they used to run these kind of adverts in here. And beyond that, they actually went one step further and published their own magazine, because they didn't really like having to probably pay for tons of adverts. The crazy thing is with this is that these were absolutely free. This print media here, these things that you used to get, they used to just get handed out to you. So you would subscribe to Special Reserve, you become a member, and then you'd get sent this magazine, and then you could buy all these games. And they would have everything. I mean, I'm talking about everything here. I'm going to crash in again, my friends, because here we can see this was March 1993. This is the heyday. This was my day, really, of video gaming. This is kind of like why I became really obsessive. So yeah, I was 13 years old. Probably the strangest age to be obsessing about games, but there you go. And there were some really classic games here. I mean, Grand Prix was a really big one on the Amiga, and something you might recognise now in the top corner here is Elite, also now known as Elite Dangerous, because they did that. Below that, you got F-19 Stealth Interceptor, if I remember, that's what it was called. Oh no, Stealth Fighter. I think there's another one, probably slightly different. And Thunderhawk was also, this one here, Thunderhawk was a fantastic game by Core Design Games, who obviously went on and did Tomb Raider. Toby Gard was the guy that did the character design for that. And then they kind of, I don't know, got sold off and ended up as Edios, or EOS, or however you want to say it. See if we can find something that was, yes, I found one. Monkey Island, a review. Was it a review or was it? Okay, yeah, forgot. Of course, because the Amiga at the time was also coming up against the Atari ST. So here, Monkey Island was out for the Atari ST and the Amiga. Actually, the ST was fantastic for sound work, which is why a lot of audio artists went on and used it. KGB, I don't quite remember that game. Everyone remembers Nigel Mansell's World Championship. That was on everything, this one. But most noticeably, there was an awesome advert for the Super Nintendo version, if you remember that. Gunship 2000, Zool BC Kid. BC Kid was okay, it was very average. Zool I thought was actually a bit rubbish, but nonetheless it went on, did really well, everyone loved it. And here we have some of the typical Nintendo craziness where they just add a ton of mad contraptions on everything. You know, lights and all sorts. But here we had the Game Genie, which before you had to pay for DLC, you had one of those. You just paid for an actual device to plug into it so you could alter the code. Possibly one of my favourite games ever. Actually, two of my favourite games ever. Three! Although this is on the Game Boy, so it doesn't count. Turrican, Ghouls and Ghosts, which is superb, and UN Squadron, which is one of the best shoot-'em-ups ever. And unfortunately, it's really hard to get this on as a re-release because the license ran out for the magazine, or there's some issue there. It was Area 88 anyway, which I was recently reminded of because I completely forgot about that. Oh, look, check this out. Check this out, please. Check it out. If you don't know who this fella is, you're going to hear about him pretty soon because, as I understand it, they are definitely trying to make a revival back of this character. Okay, so why do I like print? I love print because it was a time where you could sit down and read this back to back, and also some of the print magazines actually had a lot of heart, soul, character in it, whereas these days anything that's digital is kind of geared for I guess SEO, keyword, you know, to really pick up on all the algorithms and all the back end stuff that's going on. So if you're into, like, if you run a blog yourself or if you're into marketing, you'll know what I'm talking about. This stuff was never done like that. This was purely done, all the money was coming mostly from the adverts. Oh no, look, this one's got a slash down it. That's not cool at all. I don't even know how that happened. I'm gonna have to talk to my wife about that. I'm sure she did that in a fit of rage, as she hates all this stuff hanging around. So Damien from Nintendo Life managed to get his own little character done up by the original artist who did these. He was a fantastic artist, and he was partly, I think, the biggest reason why this had so much character to it in terms of its art style. Obviously, the whole team had an input into that, but without that art style, I think it wouldn't have stood out so much as it did, because I was never really, although I loved CMVG and all the other ones, Zap 64 and what was the other one, Amiga Format was another one, I never really took to them as much as I did to this. Pilot Wings is probably one of the few games that I can absolutely hammer, get nearly 100% on every single game there, or just miss it. And here you can see actually this is an early issue, because you can see by the games that were reviewed, so they've got the original NES, they've got the Sega Master System, you've got the Mega Drive and the Game Boy, and as soon as the SNES released, they were hammering out reviews. Look at this, I remember this, actually I remember this. I was jealous because I was like, oh my god, I need one of these, a multiplayer Megaplay. Look at this. This is something you wouldn't have on an emulation device, so where you can have every game. Adverts as well, I love some of the artwork in these adverts, the way they did them out. Very simple now, but I loved how they had these big chunky sprites. Stick Trace is actually a fantastic game that I only recently played a couple years back actually. I always wanted to buy it and never bought it because I ended up getting a different game at the time because we were skint, so we could only buy certain games. And it is actually a phenomenal game. It plays really well even today, so you should definitely give it a try. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker was awesome, Castle of Illusion, these are some of the big hitters here. And this was the old kind of tagline. Some of you might remember there was an actual advert on TV, and the TV would come alive with some shades, and he would say, do me a favour, plug me into a Sega. And do me a favour was kind of like the strapline that they would always use for that. Mean Yob, where it's almost like Jazz put on his like superhero costume and became Mean Yob because I think he was responding and almost, well, yeah, he was insulting everyone really with it, and with their responses and their letters, but they loved it and they kept sending more, so they obviously enjoyed that quite a bit. And here we go, look at this, tips. Have you ever seen tips like this? This is like, someone's obviously drawn this and sent it in. Oh, yeah, they did, look, the map was sent in by Gary Marr of Pass and Cross, Sheffield. So well done, Gary, because your drawing has lived on to these days today. Yeah, he's done 2 lots. Look, he's actually drawn out a whole map of the game. Now people just play games just so they can stream them on Twitch. Final Fight was another great game. Speedball, legendary. That's actually, I have to admit, Bitmap Brothers and I can't remember who it was, the guys who did Populous. I know who the guy was, but I can't remember what the studio was called at that time. Bullfrog, they put out loads of stuff on the Master System. Things like Populous were really, really good. Gremlins, don't know much about that. Nintendo, they seem to think it was quite a good license. 87% they gave that overall. You know, and even the kind of the information they were giving you, I mean, talking about that, you only get 3 lives. It's 1 skill level, no easy, medium or hard, you just play the game. Unlimited continues because you'll die loads, but then they give the overall game difficulty as a level of easy. And then the price was 35 quid for a NES game. So prices haven't really changed much at all. This was a great game, Swap, or eSwap. Absolutely loved that. I didn't enjoy it to begin with, it was one of the games I actually learned to really love as you go on. Hotlines, never really rang those. Golden Axe, obviously at #1. All the arcade ports coming in there. So on and oh my god, they called it Rescue. Oh my, this is the first time I've seen this. Okay, so this game here that you're looking at, this was one of my favourite games on the Amiga, and it was called Hostages. Maybe Hostages was too aggressive for Nintendo, so they called it Rescue. Not a bad save there really on their part, but yeah, it doesn't look too bad. And I wonder if they kept the first person mode, because there was a first person mode in this where you tap left and right on the joystick and the whole room would just like scroll along as you were turning around. It was amazing though, it was a really good game. And we spoke about Populous earlier on, that was a preview of it. The game was amazing. Why I remember it the most, I have no idea. I remember I took this exact issue to London with me, and I haven't looked at it for ages, but if I remember rightly, it was the issue that made me get a Super Nintendo, because it had a preview of Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, or Turtles in Time, and I was a huge Turtles fan when I was younger. So I took this to my grandparents, because we went on holiday to London to see them, because all my family lived in London. And this was a magazine I took, and I must have read it about 8 times, back to back, front to back. And again, here are some of the early art here of Electronic Arts. So this is when obviously Trip Hawkins was running Electronic Arts. He had a much better grasp on it. Trip Hawkins is actually a very, very smart entrepreneur. Partly why he got the yearly deal done with all the sports guys. So, you know, he was the first company to do that. So that's why he got hundreds of Maddens and hundreds of FIFAs. So let's look through this whole magazine, like, because this is one of the cool ones. Okay, so here we go. We've got Julian Rignall. We've got Richard Leadbetter, or Leadbetter. I don't know how you say his name. I'm gonna get shot for that. Rad man, look at him. Look at him. He was an easy cartoon to draw, that guy, because he had rad hair. Oz Brown there. And who's this? Gary and Rob Bright. I think some of these guys actually left quite soon after starting. This is the classic Special Reserve format layout. This would be very familiar to anyone who would have read these magazines. Ah, yes. Super Dominion and Tank Police. I was a huge manga fan, so straight after this magazine there was only one other magazine that I subscribed and got every issue of, which I then binned them all gutted, and that was Super Play. And with Super Play, when you bought their issue and you subscribed, you'd get a free manga, and that manga was the VHS of Akira. I then took it to school, I became very popular, and then the manga word soon spreaded, and we ended up with great films like Akira, Super Dominion Tank Police, Fist of the North Star. We had Urusaki Dojai, which was a great movie, although a bit weird. If you've seen it, you'll know what I mean. And then you had 3x3 Eyes, and so on and so on, The Guy with Dark Hero. And those are all kind of the animes of my time that I'd watch. But this was a fantastic show. Look, Games Master in a drawing. How interesting. And we've got some Sonic drinks down here. This is a bit weird. LHX Attack Chopper, which was a great game. Ocean, one of my favourite studios of the past, no longer with us, which is a shame. It's a bit depressing really to think about that. Oh look, Game. There's a Game shop all the way back then. So Game was around for a long time. Not for much longer though, I don't think. I think they're not in very good shape at the minute. Okay, and these were the cool things. I love this, the Mega game, the seal of approval, the thumbs up. This is a fantastic game. If you've not played it, you need to check it out. And these guys absolutely loved it, obviously, because they gave it an overall rating of 93%, which is really good. Okay, look, here's some probably not so PC anymore adverts, because it's like half-naked 80s style ladies with CRT there, looking pretty good, holding some games, you know, fetishizing the whole WWF thing, which they had to change the name of because obviously pandas are more important. Sex sales, doesn't it? So that's probably why they did it. Mean Yob again. I love the artwork again here. You know, I don't know if this was one of the guys on the team that did that drawing or whether it was a fan art that was sent to him, but it's fantastic nonetheless. Some Street Fighter 2 art there. Elite, they were another great company from back in the day. Did one of my favourite games again on the arcades, which was Joe and Mac, which wasn't called Joe and Mac. I think it was called something else, like Caveman, something like that. Robocop 2 is a fairly average film, a terrible game. Top Gear, which is not the TV show you think it is, but Super Mario World. This is the Tips Corner again. Good stuff. Steel Empire, which is another great game. Funhouse is great, sort of a million. I never actually got to play that, although everyone wanted to because I think it was very Zelda-y. Splatterhouse 2, bought it anyway, it was a terrible game. Oh, the Action Replays had those as well. It's an expensive way to do it, isn't it? But this is the kind of stuff that I missed, that you could just sit down and, like, I have to admit, it was about 2 years ago I cracked this issue open and had a quick flick through, but I didn't really see half the stuff that I thought I would. So I'm hoping we will see a Turtles in Time. Oh look, they called it something else than that. This was called something like Nimbus. On the Amiga, I can't remember what it was called. Nimbus, it's not Nimrod. Something quirky like that, but it was a fairly boring game, to be honest. Look, again, sex sells. Stick, oh actually, my God, she doesn't really, they've not done her justice really there, have they, let's be honest. A dodgy picture there of a Mega Drive. Not looking very cool. I love the Mega Drive, I love the way it looks. It's probably the best looking console. Further look over to the Super Nintendo, but I think the Super Nintendo kind of obviously had some super games on it. Super games, did you see what I did there? Krusty Super Fun House, amazing game. Obviously they think so too, giving it a 90% score. So all this kind of stuff, it's probably had its day now. Obviously print magazines, you're not going to be able to go into a shop and get something like this again, because it's all old hat, and it's something that I miss. I think they could probably re-release these as a kind of a remastered Mean Machine series, you know, and then do their kind of updated take on it. That would be quite interesting, something different, something for people to collect. So in that sense, I think print could work. And again, they've got the same advert. Is that the second advert? Is that the same advert? I can't remember because I'm looking through a few magazines. So if this has been edited, then you know, hey, and here we go. I love this game. Turtles in Time. Absolutely awesome. Look at that, Neo Geo. Neo Geo, look at that, £259 for a Neo Geo game. Is it £259? Oh no, it's not. That's the system, that's the system. Okay, so the games, because I buy these on the actual arcade machine, and they are possibly about the same price now. Okay, so here we've got Ghost Pilot for £64. I think it's Pilots actually. They've done a misprint there. But now that would cost like probably 100 quid on the MVS, and if it's an AES cartridge like what these were, because they're limited runs, they would be loads more than that. It'd be silly money. Oh my god, it's so expensive. Okay, Operation Wolf. Prince of Persia for the Super Nintendo. I'm just gonna kind of reach across and grab my beverage. Wet my whistle. And oh look, they did a handheld magazine called Go. Oh, I forgot that one. And we have the amazing charts here. So let's see what was in number 1 on the Mega Drive. Desert Strike, top game. It was a great game. Not as great as Streets of Rage, unfortunately, in my opinion. And Kid Chameleon, I always thought that was overrated. I thought that game was actually terrible, but for whatever reason, it seemed to do really well, and it was kind of made a big deal of, and you'll see it everywhere. Sega always talk about it. Even today, on their terrible emulated thing that they brought out, Sega Forever. The Mega Mart, this was also a crazy one. I think this is where, almost like the newspaper ads, where you'd want to sell something, and you would ring up and say, I hear you want to sell your game. Nothing dodgy about that at all. Stranger danger and all that. And that is kind of come to the, Axelay. Yes, Axelay is another great game. Next to UN Squadron, that's probably the one. Super Slam Dunk. I think I had that. That wasn't a very good game. Oh god, this was awful. People kind of drawn to it though, because it looked a bit like James Pond. And Alien 3, which was actually a really good game, but it just was stupidly hard. And that's it really, guys.